What's up, Raider Nation? Big news out of Vegas. The Raiders have signed a massive addition to the defensive line, and this one's worth talking about. Meet Lachlan Tossi, a towering 6 feet 6 inches, 347 pounds defensive lineman who's joining the Silver and Black as an undrafted free agent. Tossi comes from the NFL's International Pathway Program and was previously playing rugby in Queensland, Australia. Born in Samoa, he's only 21 years old and brings a unique athletic profile that immediately stands out. Now, the Raiders don't get the international exemption for Tossi, meaning he'll count toward the 90-man roster like any other player. But the fact that they signed him outright, rather than just having him placed through the program, shows they see real potential here. I checked out some of his highlights, and let me tell you, this guy is impressive. For someone his size, his movement is eye-catching. It reminds me of what Eagles offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland saw years ago in Jordan Mailata, another rugby convert. Mailata was also 6 feet 8 inches, around 350 pounds, and had rare agility for his size. Fast forward, and Mailata developed into one of the top tackles in the NFL. That kind of trajectory starts with raw talent and elite athletic traits. Exactly what the Raiders are betting on with Tossi. Right now, the Raiders already have another international player, David Agoha, who doesn't count against the roster limit. Tossi, however, will count, which tells us the team really wanted him and didn't want to risk another club grabbing him through the program's standard assignment process. Let's be clear, Tossi is a project. He's raw, and it's unlikely he'll make an immediate impact this season. But when you have a defensive lineman who's 6 feet 6 inches, 347 pounds, and moves like a much smaller player, you're working with tools that can't be taught. We don't have exact testing numbers like a 40-yard dash yet, but judging by his tape, he's explosive and powerful. What's exciting is the possibility of lining him up on the edge in certain situations. Imagine a guy that big crashing down on a tackle with pure strength. It'll be fun to watch his development and see if he can carve out a role over time. We've seen international players rise through the ranks before, and Tossi has the physical gifts to be another success story if everything clicks. There's definitely a lot of upside here, and I'm eager to see how it plays out when training camp gets rolling. Big update on the offensive line front. Colton Miller is back at Raiders camp and working out during voluntary offseason activities. If you missed it, a few weeks ago there was a report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler claiming that Miller planned to hold out unless he got a new contract. That report came straight from Miller's camp and stirred up a lot of talk. But here's the thing. This phase of camp is voluntary. Players aren't required to be there, and typically no one bats an eye if someone skips it. So, the fact that Miller's team went public about the contract situation seemed like a strategic move to get negotiations out in the open. Now fast forward to this week, and Colton Miller is not only at camp, he's on the field, putting in the work. That tells me he's fully invested in this team and ready to contribute, despite any contract discussions happening behind the scenes. It's a brand new scheme, a new coaching staff, and a lot to learn, so seeing him buy in like this is a huge positive. Photos from practice made the rounds online, with Miller looking locked in. Honestly, it's great to see because Miller is a cornerstone of the Raiders' offensive line. Protecting Geno Smith's blindside is priority number 1 this season, and having a reliable left tackle like Miller is essential to making the offense click. The team also invested heavily in the O-line during the draft, which is exciting. But while rookies need time to develop, having a veteran like Miller anchoring the line makes everything more stable. The right tackle spot still has some question marks. DJ Glaze shows promise, and Charles Grant, another rookie, is expected to develop at tackle rather than guard. When I watched their college tape, Grant stood out with more upside, though that doesn't automatically mean he'll be the better player right away. Development is key, and it's worth noting that early struggles are normal for young linemen. With the Raiders' offensive line coach, PeteCarroll's son, leading the charge, it'll be crucial to get these guys progressing quickly. But at the heart of it all is Miller. His presence and leadership set the tone, and I'm really encouraged to see him out there. As for the contract, there's been chatter that he might have already signed a new deal, but as of now, nothing official has been announced. If something like that had happened, it would have been public by now. Most likely, the team has assured him they'll work something out, whether that means restructuring other contracts or adjusting finances down the line. Either way, I'm not concerned. The Raiders are in a solid spot when it comes to the offensive line and offense overall. Quick side note, I've seen some talk about draft picks like wide receiver Jack Beck from TCU, and I want to clear something up. I'm not down on him at all. In fact, I think the Raiders did a great job with their rookie class, and it'll be fun to watch how all these young players develop. Looking back at the draft as a whole, I feel really confident about what the Raiders did from rounds 1 through 4. I know I questioned the Jack Beck pick at wide receiver, mainly because there were a few other guys I personally liked more. For example, Kyle Williams was still on the board just a few picks later, and Luther Burden went at number 39, right after the Raiders traded down from 38. But just because I had other favorites doesn't mean JohnSpytek got it wrong. Honestly, I could be the one who's off here. Overall, I really like the approach the Raiders took. The later rounds, 5th, 6th, 7th, are always a bit of a coin flip, no matter who you pick. So my excitement is definitely focused on what the Raiders did early in the draft. There's just a ton of upside with this group. Speaking of wide receivers, the Raiders made an interesting move by signing Colin Johnson, the former Texas Longhorn. At first, it felt a little strange because the roster is already packed at wide receiver. You've got guys like Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker locked in, plus 2 rookies the team just drafted, Dante Thornton Jr. and Jack Besh. Add in someone like Tyreek McAllister, who flashed serious potential last season, and the room feels crowded. But then I dug into it a bit more, and Colin Johnson's signing started to make more sense. He's a big-bodied receiver, listed at 6 feet 6 inches, 222 pounds. He reminds me a lot of Dante Thornton Jr. in terms of size and build. I think the Raiders brought Johnson in to be a mentor-type figure, someone who can help Thornton develop his game. Thornton is a 4th-round pick and super raw, so expecting him to make a huge impact right away, like 1,500 yards in year 1, isn't realistic. He's going to need time to learn and grow into a bigger role. Looking ahead, I think the long-term plan is to groom Thornton and Beck as future starters. At some point, guys like Myers and Tucker might move on, or they could get re-signed if things work out. Either way, the focus will be on developing young talent, and bringing in a veteran like Johnson to help with that process feels like a smart move. Statistically, Johnson isn't going to wow anyone. 31 catches for 394 yards over 4 seasons. But his experience across multiple NFL teams could prove valuable in the locker room. Finally, the Raiders are also making some moves behind the scenes. The front office has been restructured a bit. Champ Kelly left, and they've named a new assistant general manager and a new director of college scouting. From what I'm hearing, JohnSpytek is quietly building a powerhouse front office team. Some people I follow who are really plugged in have said the same thing. This could be the foundation of something special for the Raiders. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. If you didn't know, May 1st is a big date in the scouting world. Most scouts' contracts end on April 30th, which means May 1st is kind of like the start of a new scouting year. Once the draft is over, teams start to reset and look ahead to the next season, and that includes making changes to their scouting departments. The Raiders wasted no time in making moves. According to Sports Illustrated, they've hired Brian Stark as JohnSpytek's assistant general manager. Stark joins the Silver and Black after spending 13 seasons with the Denver Broncos, where he racked up a ton of experience. Most recently, he served as the Broncos' director of college scouting from 2016 through 2024. That's a long-time running point on scouting, and it's clear Stark knows his stuff. This move is really interesting when you think about how JohnSpytek operates. Back when Spytek was the assistant general manager with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was widely reported that he had a huge hand in building their draft board. Even though he wasn't technically the director of college scouting, he was the guy overseeing the process and working closely with all the scouts. While Spytek may not have had the final say on every pick, people around the league knew he was deeply involved. The Raiders might be setting up something similar here. Bringing in Brian Stark, someone with that much scouting experience, could mean Stark will take a lead role in building out the Raiders draft board moving forward. And that's not all. The Raiders also promoted Jonathan Stigl, naming him the assistant director of college scouting. Stigl is a veteran of 27 NFL seasons and spent the past 11 years with the New York Jets, where he was most recently a national scout in 2024. From everything I've seen on social media, Stigl is extremely well respected across the league. People in scouting circles describe him as a grinder, someone who absolutely puts in the work and has a true passion for the job. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, scouting is a tough gig. It might sound glamorous, traveling around the country, watching games, but it's not as easy as it looks. You're constantly on the road, doing the same evaluations over and over. I've spoken to multiple scouts at events like the Hula Bowl, and they've all said the same thing. It's a grind. Stigall, though, seems to love the work, and that's the kind of mentality you want in your front office. It's exciting to see the Raiders bringing in people with that kind of reputation and experience. Don't overlook these front office moves. They matter. To give you an example, think about Adam Peters. He was with the 49ers for years, working closely with John Lynch, and was widely considered one of the smartest people in football. When he decided to leave, teams lined up to hire him. Moves like that can shape a franchise's future, and the Raiders might be setting themselves up in a similar way with these hires. Adam Peters handpicked the Commanders when he left the 49ers, and in just 2 years, he's completely reshaped that team. He's already landed a franchise quarterback, traded for a franchise left tackle, and even drafted another left tackle in this year's draft, someone I personally really like. The Commanders now look like one of the better teams in the league, at least on paper, and Peters is widely respected as one of the sharpest general managers in football. But it's important to remember, his impact wasn't just limited to Washington. Back with the 49ers, Peters helped build that roster into a powerhouse too. That's why you can never overlook what's happening in the front office, not just the general manager, but all the key personnel behind the scenes. These guys don't usually get much recognition, and most fans don't even know their names, but their work can make or break a team's success in the draft and beyond. We'll see how it all plays out, but I think the Raiders are in a really solid place right now. On paper, they've done an excellent job. Of course, coaching is going to be critical, and these players need time to develop. Charles Grant isn't going to walk in and be an all-pro tackle from day one. It might take a couple of years before he reaches that level. Same goes for guys like Jack Beck and Dante Thornton. They have the potential to become top-tier players, but it's going to take time. Still, there's so much upside here, and I'm genuinely excited about where the Raiders are headed. Honestly, after watching JohnSpytek's first draft, I really feel like he knows what he's doing. You think back to the Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter situation. If the Raiders had a do-over, I think they'd make the right call this time around. And I love that they went after Colin Kanye, even when people questioned it, saying he was too small. But on tape, he was right there with Jalen Carter, maybe even better. Spytek and his team trusted what they saw and pulled the trigger, and that kind of conviction showed throughout this entire draft. I feel good about the direction we're heading. I wasn't confident at all in Dave Ziegler's leadership. Right away, I could tell he didn't have it. His first year had a few shaky moves, and the second year was a disaster. Thankfully, the team recognized it early and moved on. With Spytek, it feels different. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out, but there's real reason for optimism. Also, quick side note, you might notice the background looks a little different today. We just moved, and it's been a hectic few days. I'm still getting everything set up, and the setup will definitely change again soon. But in the meantime, I'm working on some new film breakdowns. The first one I want to tackle is Darian Porter because that guy has huge upside. I'm aiming to have that up tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time with another breakdown.